just in the water and comfy. 10 to 12, the content that I'm going to give you today, once I'd played around with that for a while and got my head around it, 3 lessons. Just like that. Okay, so very powerful stuff if you get your noggin around it and you use it properly, because it's giving power back to that person. They go, so it's not just me sucking. That's a good thing, because me sucking means I have to pay lots of money and keep coming back for about 2 years before I can do this. Whereas, if there's something that I can take control of, if I'm aware of it and then work on it, I can get this done in 2.5 hours. Alright, so really powerful stuff. Thank you. Luna.
Yeah.
Excellent.
2 of those in class.
Perfect. Oh, I'll be able to help you with that. Thank you. It's terribly sad, but that's all it takes. And they're done, just like that. Yeah, and it's quiet. Thank you. When I started teaching, I'd come from a competitive swimming background. You're actually, unfortunately, a little bit on the back foot. More so than someone who's never done swim teaching before. Because, think about tying your shoelace. If you've got children, or other children that you've maybe taught to tie their shoelace, that's not as easy as you think. You're going to tie the shoelace. That's not that easy. So taking skills that you've learned and you take for granted and trying to give that to someone in words, or pictures, if you're cool with pictures. Mine just sort of look like half-dead chickens all the time, but anyway, right, if you're good with that, but getting that information across is very tricky, so it's an important skill to get. That's awesome. Good having that background. You've probably asked some good questions today. And enjoy the full session. Thank you. Content, things to do.
Yes, so that's what I'm here for, is to learn the content site so I can put the
Excellent.
put the two together.
Oh, you'll have a good listen when I talk about the resources that we've got. We've got some wicked free resources on our website to download, which will really help you by the sounds of things. And especially after today, because today is all about how to use those resources. Excellent, thank you. The Coach Award yesterday that we ran, which is the equivalent coaching course that what you're doing today. So if you'd like to know more about it or just see how it went, speak to them rather than to us. We're biased. Find out if they thought it was a big waste of time or the coolest thing since sliced bread. Speak to them, but that's really neat, so I'm sure you'll get something out of that. Awesome, thank you very much.
I'm Kylie, and I'm now.
Kids in one pool of water in front of you right now.
Yeah.
We can definitely help you with that today. I will encourage you to, as the day progresses, as we cover a topic, and all of you, if you go, oh, that sounds like a little yarn, that naughty one, all right, that one, all right, oh, can you just give me a quick tip for how to deal with that? Always, if you've got a class of difficult children, right, the first thing you have to do is go away and evaluate what you did in that class. Always. Yes, there are kids that are going to have extra tendencies and a little bit of extra help that they might need during that session, or attention, but there's some wicked easy strategies that you can put in place. And some interesting content. I don't get to talk about it too much today, but active movement. If you've heard of active movement, which is a Spark initiative, in line with Push Play is the adult version of it. It's a world-leading initiative. These are our resources, active movement in water. That will give you a lot of insight as to why those children do the things that they're doing in the water. It's not necessarily because they're naughty, it's because they haven't yet got something that's going to help them to iron out a few things to satisfy them to actually pay attention to you. When they're busy doing this, and the water, right, they're listening to you, or at least they're trying to. But what's happening is their brain's going, I can't be in this without doing something. I have to do something because this is so cool and I haven't done it yet before. Right? Because what we have to remember is that in this day and age, our children are not, they're living sedentary lifestyles. They're not getting what we got as children. They're not able to climb trees, fall off and break their leg. Or, I mean, some places you're still very lucky and they can do these sorts of things. They're not, not being allowed to climb under chairs. They get stopped straight away and pulled, oh, you could hurt yourself. They're not allowed to stick their head in the bars and go, oh, that didn't work. I'm stuck. What now? Well, I'm still stuck. This is a problem. Right? Kids get stopped before they do that sort of thing, but you're learning so much, you're going, well, that didn't work. Next time, I'll find some bigger bars, right? But until I do that, I don't know that that's how wide I am. I'm going to talk about this more later, but I'll give you a really quick example, a real-world example. If you've ever watched a preschool class, or a bunch of young children, and one kid sort of walks in a bit late, I'm cool, there's a little spot about this big, and they're a bit bigger than that big, and they go, hey. And they sit in there, they sit on 3 children, everybody's crying, what the hell happened, teacher's in there, and the kid's going, well, right, I mean, there was a spot there for me. Now what's happened is they haven't developed the vestibular system that's busy telling them that, hey, guess what, your bottom is actually that big, whereas you think it might be that big. They haven't learned that yet because they haven't done the climb under, oh yeah, that worked, that's good, and then go find something that doesn't work, get stuck and go, that didn't work. Right? They haven't done that stuff yet. Really fascinating. Arjun will be running, oh, I get so excited about this. Arjun will be running workshops about this stuff, right? Not specifically active movement in water, but also active movement. Check out the website and go along to this if you're at all interested by that stuff. Okay, gotta move on. Award requirements. I'm going to zip through this because I covered everything that you were going to talk about anyway, so that's good. Okay, thank you. Definitely, and write it down somewhere when we get to essential sequencing. Or circle it. That's where you need to start paying attention. You pay attention all the way up until that point, and after that point, of course, but particular attention. Maybe a new chocolate is needed at that stage. That's right. Okay, I will be dishing out chocolates as people ask really good questions. Really good ones only. All questions is a good one, but I mean a really good one is warranting a chocolate. Did I forget anybody or anything? No. Right, I will move on now. Award requirements. I might just tap these in and then we can discuss them together. Oh, is there another one? Or not? Oh no, there's not. Right, there's not. Excellent. Award requirements. So, first step, you're doing it right now. You're sitting here listening to the funny guy in the front of the room with the funny name for a whole 8 hours. Terrible for you. But anyway, you have to attend one of these courses. Next step, tricky part, you need to complete 20 hours of practical poolside instruction. I didn't see one. I'm not sure why I didn't see one. Oh, I did see one. Oh, look at that. In the back of your pack, you've got one of these. Looks like that. It's called an instructor's logbook. So you need to do 20 hours of logged teaching. Now, strangely enough, we thought that we'd nip this in the bottom, but the book doesn't actually have enough space in it for 20 hours of 30-minute lessons. Yes, I know, that does seem silly. What we did was we counted out the number of pages and told the printer we need this many pages because for the last 7 years our last manual, surprisingly enough, didn't have enough space for 20 hours worth of 30-minute lessons. So we said we need this many pages and they went, not a problem, we've done it. And we got it and we went, wicked, we've got it, until Jan actually counted the pages. And what they did was, that total equals 20 hours of 30-minute lessons. Unfortunately, it's made up of a whole bunch of pages of other things at the front and at the back. So all we expect is that 20 hours or close thereto, in other words, fill this book up and that will suffice as long as it is up to the right standard. And Arjun will take you through this afternoon, once I've left and the scary time has stopped. He'll take you through how to fill this out and how to use it. But you do need to fill out 20 hours of practical poolside instruction. Now that needs to be supervised by someone who has got this award. If you're at a school, then the principal can sign it off for you. That person doesn't necessarily have to be on poolside watching you all the time. That person does not necessarily have to be in the water with you teaching all the time. All that person is saying is that you are the person that did those hours. It's not somebody else's work. It's not they just want to get you signed off and you turned up once out of the last year and you wrote up someone else's work. You did the hours and that's it. Okay, so that's what that person is signing their name to. Essentially maybe a bit of a character reference. If Arjun gets your logbook and he reads through the first 4 and he goes, this is good, and he gets to number 5 and it's not good, then what he might do is go, it's not good, but it might be okay. He's going to ring up the person that signed off your logbook and say, how did they go? Right? How did Mark do with his logged hours? Is he still working for you? And they might go, he did his 20 hours and I've never seen him since, so I don't know. Then he's going to go, okay, well maybe I need to send it back to Mark and get a bit more work out of it. So just choose that person wisely, make sure there's someone that will be able to say, so we don't want to call them up and they go, who? Oh, we don't want that. We want them to know what's happening. After you've done that, oh no, there it is, complete the logbook, return it to your regional education manager. The next step, and this is where it gets interesting, and if you're familiar with our old system with SwimSafe, this is where it's changed. That was it. That's all you had to do to get the SwimSafe certificate. Now, as you can imagine, the problem with that is that for a swim school, you get someone with a SwimSafe certificate, that doesn't denote standard, that doesn't denote level of competency. You could have been teaching water babies, you could have been teaching mini squad, you could have been teaching adults. Right? But this award requires you to undergo a practical assessment. Now, it's called fancy stuff, it all comes across very CSI, but it's called evidence gathering. Now, all that means is that we've got 4 regional assessors. So Arjun is the person that decides whether you pass or fail. But this is NZQA credits, and if you're familiar with that, there is no pass or fail. You're either competent or you haven't yet demonstrated competency. So it's not pass or fail, but he's the Grand Pumbaa, if you will. He's the one that makes the final decision. All right, so you undergo 2 of these evidence gathering poolside checks. Now you've got a copy of this poolside check sheet, so it's no surprises. You can prepare all you want. Only thing you can't prepare for is the questions that go along with that. Now, they look scary because it's a whole bunch of pages. You don't get a copy of that because we don't want you to rote learn it. But all it is just questions that pertain exactly to what you just showed that person in your teaching. Right? So it's all a process of demonstrating competency if you're unfamiliar with NZQA. Right? A lot of people, young people these days, has had a lot to do with NZQA. my only experience with NZQA is through developing this award, and there's a lot of work that goes into these NZQA unit standards if you've ever looked at them. First of all, it's not even English when you read it, it's some other weird language. But you have to undergo 2 of these. The first one, and this is important that you understand this, the first one is you have to do a class that is developing propulsion. And that's very fancy for moving, pushing, kicking, pulling, jumping, whatever. Just anything where I'm moving, that is developing propulsion according to the unit standard. The other class that you have to do is you have to do a class that is developing confidence. Now that's the blowing bubbles, getting into the pool, getting out of the pool, moving around like this in the pool. All right? That sort of thing is developing confidence. So you have to do 2 classes. Now as you can see, what we've done with this award, in terms of making it an industry standard, is we're saying that for a beginner teacher, you have to teach beginners, so you can't get away with being a squad coach that gets away with doing their swim safe by being a squad coach. You have to teach beginners, and you also have to do some of that potentially squad stuff, so you're a bit more sort of good base, if you will. So you undergo those 2, you get asked all the questions. Once that's done, you need to get a first aid certificate. This is important, it has to be a first aid certificate with unit standards 6401 and 6402. All that means is pretty much that it's a 2-day course as opposed to the 1-day course, just in case you're wondering. But when you do inquire about doing your first aid, do ask them, is this the course that's got the unit standards attached? You don't necessarily have to have the numbers, but if you want to write it down, you can. 6401, 6402. You have to hold a current first aid certificate for your ASTA certificate to be issued by Arjun. Okay, so you don't have to do it now, you don't have to do it in the next 6 months, but if you complete your hours in the next 6 months and you do the evidence gathering, at that point you want to have a current first aid. So don't get one now, finish it in 12 months, and then hand your stuff in because your first aid is going to expire and he's just going to send your stuff back to you. And the last thing you have to do is you have to have a signed code of conduct, which is at the back of this book. See it there, code of conduct. Okay, there's a little page for you to sign, excuse me, and to rip out. You can either give that back to us now, but what I'd probably do is leave it in there so that it all gets sent in at the same time. Okay, that way we can't have a filing error and potentially lose it. Right, those things do happen every now and again, unfortunately. Sign your code of conduct, and the only other thing that you would potentially need to do is, and this is, it's going to sound offensive, but you have to also sign a Sofrito training agreement. Now, Sofrito is our industry training organisation. You don't have to know this. It's Sport, Fitness, Sport, Fitness, Recreation Industry Training Organisation. There's one for farming, there's one for other things, there's all sorts of these ones. Our one is Sofrito, and they need a training agreement because they get money from Spark, so from the government, to train our industry. Now, your pool, in all likelihood, would have signed one of these agreements, in which case you don't need to as an individual, but it might be good practice to just ask Arjun to send one to you so you can sign it and send it in anyway. All right, and take it to your team leader or manager or head coach and just get them to check whether your pool is signed up. Any questions?
So do we have a test about 8 hours today?
Yes, we do. It's a 2-hour formal exam where I sit there timing you. No, nothing. You only have to do your practical 20 hours, the assessments, and then you're good as gold. But today is all about listening and participating. Cool? Good question. How many more have you got to go? Now, all of